Matter of fact, let's just make this simple and plain. I grab this, they won't remember his name. He'll be past tense. Literally go from Ave to memory lane. First.
You forgot about the little Noane. That thing be going crazy. And since Charlie bit me, there's one finger on the bait.
Facts. Y'all might have to play this back, but when you piece it all together, those are the type of lines that created smack. So
in the first season of the Speaking Our Language show, I want to record say that the UM1 class, among a couple other individuals, saved battle rap during the COVID era. Just a little bit ago, J Smo declared UM1 as the best tourney of the series. As you can tell, there's an inherent greatness to that group of battlers and what they were able to achieve in a major time of uncertainty. But what's mind-boggling is how much time has elapsed since the UM1 class was first formed. We're approaching 4 years since those guys put on a clinic. Some rose to newer heights, some stayed afloat, and others are in limbo or in straight battle rap oblivion. In today's video, we're going to dissect all 16 members of the class and discuss where they are and where they were before. And this video will be somewhat of a 4-tier system. Each tier will contain 4 spots. The 4th tier is titled I'm Not Sure. Here I'm simply stating that I don't know where their career is headed or how high their ceiling is. The 3rd tier is titled Need to Figure It Out. These are the battlers who may have had a great start and a good deal of talent, but haven't made the leap that they should have made in their career yet. The 2nd tier is titled Has Shown Promise. These are battlers that have shown that they can compete and in some cases ascend to top tier status. However, they're either inconsistent or missing key elements that are keeping them from being solidified stars. The 1st tier is the leader of the new school. These are guys who are stars and going to be all-time greats. So without further ado, let's start from the bottom. And to start off the video, we're going to start off with Squeako. Squeako appeared to be a promising prospect for the brand. He had great charisma, a different style, and knew how to entertain the audience in some way, shape, or form. However, one could argue that his best days predate the time in the tournament, and he hasn't been able to recapture the buzz he garnered prior to the stint in the tournament. When you factor in the first round exit, his inability to get through his material consistently on major platforms, and how he's been extremely inactive for a substantial period, it's hard to see where he's headed. The second person going into this tier is Brooklyn Hands. Brooklyn Hands has a solid foundation as a battler, the voice, the stature, and the pacing to capture the audience attention. He had his first PG a year before the tourney and would take on True Foe in a solid battle on the Maryland Survivor Series card, a card that will be mentioned more than once. His style consists of distinct imagery, but also obscure references occasionally. One could tell he's more built for music than he is for the sport. He was able to make it past the first round, but was eliminated in the second against Ace I Mean. The NYB representative has given battle rap a try a couple of times, but one could tell he isn't looking to be a mainstay, especially since he hasn't cataloged a battle in a couple of years. The third entry, and an interesting one at that, is Gunpowder Pat. Pat gained initial recognition in his hometown in the Brooklyn Mike Club League, but a bulk of his attention came from his performances on We Go Hard. Immediately, people saw a huge character and ability to perform and entertain. Even if the wins weren't being accumulated, he had a lasting impression. However, the lack of wins would catch up to him on the URL platform after a couple of PGs, a solid performance against Your Honor, and a forgettable one versus Burke Bucks. He was placed in the tournament with the hopes that he would find a spark, but that was far from the truth. And the results. The Quiet Room was not a good fit for his style. He would suffer a first round exit against another We Go Hard representative, Rubando. Honestly, no one would be surprised if that was the end of the story. However, after taking some time off, Pat came back to We Go Hard, where he would receive shots against Chef Trez and Tay-Rock. While he is still receiving opportunities on his home league, it's hard to say if he will truly ascend to a level where he can consistently compete with other pros of the sport. To conclude the tier 4, we have Big Hand. Big Hand has been around the block and then some. Prior to the tournament, he has clashed against Big Cannon and Rosenberg. Also, he's had PGs against Snake Eyes, Jay Murda, and had a Spit the Heat appearance against Bad News. After a couple years of being away from the URL platform, Big Hand will return against Stumbles before entering the tournament. One thing that remained a constant was Hand's ability to be aggressive, have conviction, and bark on his opponent. However, the content hasn't always been up to par, which would become the primary issue with his more high-profile looks. He would lose in the first round against Brooklyn Hands, but would still remain active. He took on battles versus Don Marino, Swave Seva, and Clone. However, his recent battle versus John Cannon was one of his better battles he's had, and the setting would fit the gritty style he's looking for. Now, in terms of his career, I can't quite assess where he's headed. To start off Tier 3, we have Jay Kruger. Jay Kruger, in my opinion, is one of the biggest what-ifs of the class. Jay Kruger would gain major traction on Gates of the Garden and the Trap-In right before getting the URL call. But once he got the call, it was bombs away. Early on, he solidified himself as one of the more bar-heavy up-and-comers. His first PG versus Kid Chaos was sensational. In fact, it may be one of the best band battles of that year. His performances against TY and Rubanda were also notable and helped him gain major traction into the tourney. While he was a heavy contender in the tourney, the first round was filled with tough matchups and his run ended in a dogfight against the eventual champion. But this is not the kicker. Jay Kruger would go through a series of health issues that would stymie his progression and opportunities. After overcoming those roadblocks, Kruger would return, but the opportunities didn't remain. While he can still put on good performances against Cuban and Bangs, one should wonder where he would be if his health was in stable condition. The second entry of this tier is Rubando. This is a very convoluted and complicated story, but I'll try to sum it up as best as I can. As a We Go Hard rep, it seemed that the URL picked a promising prospect. His witty back-to-back puncher style fits the mold of the platform. He had good performances against Ish Moolah, Jay Kruger, and Kid Chaos. The latter was the most impressive because of how electric Kid Chaos was at the time. But then a shift happened. Bando went into the tournament with virtually nothing. No moments, no quotables, nothing. But he was able to skate through the first 2 rounds due to his opponent's mishaps. In the semis against Jay the Nightwing, he reverted back to his old ways and nearly pulled the biggest upset in the tournament. And then he choked. A crazy roller coaster. But one could say his career-defining moment thus far is almost making it to the finals. And this is unfortunate because I thought Rubando was filled with potential. Proceeding the tournament, he faced a bunch of newer guys that would eventually pass him by. Nex, Swervo, and Casino just last year. While he still may get plates on his home league and iBattle, it's hard to say he'll get as much attention as he did while he was in the tournament. The third entry is Your Honor, one of the hottest up-and-comers in 2019 and the most unique battler of the class. He made an impact early with his battles versus Swamp, Gunpowder Pat, and Lou Castro. He was one of the names already established before the tournament. After an impressive performance in the first round, he couldn't handle the short prep to withstand the second round against Rubando. Proceeding the tournament, there's still a level of mystique behind the artist. He's had standout performances where he showed glimpses of greatness against Gems, Dot, and Gluezy, but those performances were few and far in between and would be washed away by his lack of preparation and cleanliness in other battles. Battles versus Ill Will, Don Marino, Steams, and Young X has done more than dampen the excitement. Moreover, his constant flirting with retirement and his inability to fly across the country has shortened the opportunities for him to really take steps towards reaching his potential. But he did just recently have a remarkable performance against Loso, so maybe he'll turn in the right direction. Who knows? The last entry of this tier is Don Marino. This was another name that was established before the tournament. With his great battles in the PGs and his affiliation with NWX, Don was considered another favorite in the tourney. He already had great battles against Chess, Jada Nightwing, Prep, Pass, and Geechee Gotti before UM1. He was easily one of the most battle-tested going on. However, the tourney did him no favors. He helped another guy rise to stardom in the process, but that's a discussion for later. After an unexpected visit, he was still given looks. He had good performances against Marv 1, Danger Zone, and Danny Myers. After he overcame his battle with COVID, his biggest look was the Rum Nitty battle, and he fumbled the opportunity to say the least. Since then, he has battled other quality names like A-Ward, Mike P, and Bill Collector, but the wins against those people have been few and far between. I wouldn't say that his career is in limbo because he still has a league and provides opportunities to other people in the Florida region. However, I don't know how many looks he has left as a battler. The first entry of the second tier is Bad News. Bad News has had an interesting journey as well. He was another figure who was established before the tournament. He battled the likes of Tay-Rock, Chess, K-Shine, Chef Tress, Shotgun Suge, and many other veterans. However, the tourney did him no favors as well. He lost in the first round against Ace Amin in a tense battle. And honestly, the year or so after that wasn't that eventful either. However, he will reinvigorate his career in 2022 by not only taking part in the Midnight Madness phenomenon and winning a belt, but he will also spark great attention in Hitman's Bags and Body show. Here, he not only gained momentum, but he ignited a new flame. His performances against Pain, Snake Eyes, and J2 are his standouts when you talk about his 180. 2022 and 2023 are the best years of his career by far. While he still has to refine a couple of things with his material and pacing, he has shown he can be competitive consistently. Another entry in this tier is Lou Castro. Unlike the others just mentioned, the tournament did a lot of favors for Mr. Castro, as he was still fighting the stigma of being a Goonie member. While he had good performances against Press Mafia, Street Hymns, and Riggs the year prior, he couldn't really stand out. He was also projected to have a first-round exit as he was going in as a major underdog against Kid Chaos. With heavy inspiration, Lou Castro not only pulled the upset, but garnered a lot of praise from the fans for being one of the more entertaining figures in the first round. While he did have a losing effort against Jay in the second round, and DNA on Born Legacy X, the war was ultimately won, with Castro receiving praise in both outings. 2021 would be a landmark year for Castro, as he would appear on Double Impact with K-Shine in an amazing outing. He also will be given 3 back-to-back looks on Civil War against Jack Boy Maine, Gnome 11 against Mike P, and Summer Madness 11 against Arsenal. The latter was the most vital, as his third round would go viral and have people suggest that he's a future star. However, that light would be dimmed a tad with a devastating loss to Fonz at Chris Brown House. But all wasn't lost, because he was still given a shot versus Rum Nitty to close out the year, and Charlie Clips in the opening quarter of 2022. While he had good performances in both, he would begin to deal with another stigma: losing. On top of this, he's also had slip-ups and devastating losses that halted the push that he was given, namely Drugs and Jerry West. Lou Castro for sure has the personality, energy, and performance to be a star, but at this point, he's struggling with material and capitalizing on his opportunities. While he has taken a step in the right direction last year, he'll need a lot more to rebound this year. The third entry in this tier is Kid Chaos. Kid Chaos was the hottest PG coming up in 2019. He was incredible against Street Hymns, Jay Kruger, and Rubando. Early on, people noticed how gifted he was as a writer in comparison to his classmates. But what made him even more compelling was his competitive nature. But that same competitive nature didn't result into a tournament win, let alone a first round advance. However, I can say it worked out anyway. Shortly after, he had a great one-off with Real Sick, where he debuted his innovative default round that gained highest honors from many figures in the culture. He did take a loss to JC in the Rookies vs. Vets series, but he closed out the year in dominating fashion, beating the likes of Danger Zone and Saga. 2021 was an up and down year. Chaos will receive many different names: Danny Myers, Chess, Jada Nightwing, Chilla Jones, and Holmesy the God. He had a breakout performance against Chess, where I actually think he might have won the battle. However, even though he showed good moments in the rest of the battles, he was on the losing end. Each of his opponents were top-notch in their battle, but a part of being a star is rising to the occasion. And Chaos didn't do much of that in that stretch. But Chaos would return and have wins over Emerson Kennedy, First Lady Flames, Ava Urban Lightwork, Sheet Happens, and Loso in the 2022 and 2023. In this stretch, his only losses were Jerry West and Mike P. In 2024, he already has Chef Trez and O-Red in the books. With this being stated, I think Kid Chaos can still make that leap into being a star, if he handles this year correctly though. Although there's still many names left for him to battle, it does feel like the clock is ticking, so we'll have to make that turn very soon. The final entry of this tier is Ace Amin. Honestly, you can argue he should and can be in the final tier. However, there are only 4 slots. Ace Amin is easily the most outspoken in the group. This is good because it draws a lot of attention, but it can also be a burden when there's a constant target on your back. Ace is another former Goonie member, but he was able to distinguish himself from the group early on with his elite rapping ability, conviction, charisma, and mind for the sport. His PG vs. Fuse the General was one of the standouts in the Band Legacy series, and for good reason. He would push forward and battle the likes of Burke Bucks, Snake Eyes, Jada Nightwing, and Swamp before the tournament. 2 of the 4 were a Volume and a Summer Madness installment, major cards. Ace was seen as one of the leaders of the new school, and he wore the badge with honor. The F the Vets movement brought a lot of attention and put him under a microscope. Going into the tourney, he was another favorite to win. He would make it to the semis in a somewhat easy fashion, but due to outside conflicts, he would end up losing the battle to Fonz. After the tournament, he took on John on Bullpen in the first open event during COVID. In one of the biggest grudge matches in years, he had a really good performance that resulted in many people giving him the win. He would face Gems and Cortez in the same year, but the battle that meant the most was his battle against Danny Myers. In my opinion, this was one of his best performances of his career. 2022 wasn't the most eventful battle-wise, but 2023 had an incredible start with wins over Craig Lamar, Kitchen Clean, Arsenal, and a dominating win over True Foe. And he capped this all off with a great battle on SM with Rum Nitty. But in battle rap fashion, things can change on the fly. After an exhibition with Los Preem, Ace would lose his last 2 battles of the year in dramatic fashion against Marv 1 and Shotgun Shug. To me, this year is somewhat bittersweet. This is by far the best year he's had and put together, but he hasn't quite fully fixed the issue with choking and stumbling. In 2024, he has to fix the kinks in order to really be considered a top-tier talent. The first entry to the first tier is Jada Nightwing. The story of Mr. Wing is an interesting one. This is another individual who captured a lot of eyes and attention before the tournament. His persona, approach, and style was a breath of fresh air. He showcased his greatness in battles like Don Marino, Madface, and Emerson Kennedy. But he also showed issues with memorization and prep, and his slow pace often made us question whether he was purposely rapping slow or trying to remember his lines. Nonetheless, people were intrigued with the battler and knew he was something special. In the tournament, he had a nice run to lead him to the finals. He also set the tone in the first ever Ultimate Madness battle against Real Sick. In my humble opinion, this was the best battle of the tournament. Jay came out the victor and bypassed Castro and Rubando on his way to the finals. Unfortunately, Jay took too long to heat up against Soundz and came up short. However, his work outside of the tournament was much more impressive with wins over Sensei Saga and Shotgun Sugar to close out the year. This would ultimately lead to a matchup with New Jersey Twerk on his return. In his first volume appearance, Jada Nightwing rode uphill to beat Twerk in a milestone victory. Here, many thought Jay was ascending to top tier, and has put aside his issues with choking. However, the habit wasn't fully handled because shortly after, he would choke away the battle versus Av1 Gnome 11 and lose to Loso to close out 2021. The Loso loss was the most damaging and pushed him towards the back. 2022 was a middle-of-the-road year that still had a couple of stumbles, but still had solid performances. In 2023, Jay took a light break to recalibrate his mindset, handle external affairs, and find inspiration. Towards the back end of the year, he delivered 2 masterful performances against Gichigati and Matt Flex. These outings hint towards a resurgence and a new chapter towards greatness. The second entry in this tier is Real Sick. Real Sick time before the tournament was interesting because he started in the UW circuit but shifted over to iBattle. This was a great decision because he not only would see a variation of styles, but he will also have the flexibility to travel. He captured a lot of eyes with his look and his rapping ability. He was very seasoned early on with his student of the game mentality and natural presence. If you didn't know him before URL, you for sure knew him after he graced the stage. Unfortunately, he faced one of the hardest people in the first round and exited early. But similar to Kid Chaos and Jada Nightwing, his work outside of the tournament was much more meaningful. Him and Chaos put on a great battle, and he returned to put on great work on iBattle. Then, he closed out the year with a tremendous battle with Chilla Jones and a dominant win over his idol, B Magic. This was all a prelude going into 2021 where he was racking up wins against Mike P, Danny Myers, and Arsenal. His next tests were big stage outings against Av and the late great Pat Stay. And even if you had him losing, those performances were top-notch. However, the turning point would be the DNA battle, where a lot of fans were beginning to think Sick was losing his edge. 2022, he would enter another tournament, but this time he would lose in a great battle versus Soundz in the second round. Sick would have to hit the reset button after he took a damaging loss to Shine on Gnome 12. After a few months off, Sick will return energized and have an amazing battle with New Jersey Twerk to close out his year, and catapult himself into a dominant 2023. This past year, Sick was lights out. He had dominant wins over Homeschool and Disaster, a clear win over Koj, and a masterful win over A-Ward. The A-Ward battle is the biggest highlight, with it being one of the best performances of his career and the best battles of the year. In my humble opinion, Sick has not only showed that he's here to stay, but he's going to be someone to deal with for years to come. The second to last entry in Tier 1 is none other than Soundz. Truthfully, UM1 and on is the most important part of his rise. Soundz had the toughest schedule in the tourney. Jay Kruger, Easy the Block Captain, Ace Amin, and Jada Nightwing. He will always be remembered for winning the first ever Ultimate Madness. At this time, he was crowned as the best puncher in the new age. However, there was a time where Soundz faced a major stigma, his inability to beat top tier opponents. Preceding UM1, he had a good battle with Av, but it resulted in a loss. He was given a battle against JC on Gnome 11 that also resulted in a loss, but he was able to regain a buzz with his outstanding performance against Lou Castro. After dealing with a family tragedy, Soundz returned in 2022 with a vengeance. He racked up wins against Tink the Demon, Shuni the Rapper, Real Name Brandon, and made it all the way to the semis in UM5. However, his momentum would be slightly halted when he lost in the semis and had a slightly underwhelming performance against Danny Myers on his SM debut. Pressure was picking up, and Soundz also had to deal with the notion that he can not only beat top tiers, but he also struggles to cross over to the big stage. And in a champion fashion, he hushed all the critics and had a classic battle with Remedy to close out the year. His battle not only showed that he's becoming one of the best punchers of all time, but he's also great enough to clash with the elite. 2023 is the year where Soundz solidified his spot as a top tier, winning all his battles against McMahon, Red, Rusa, Heavy Half, and Shotgun Sugar on SM. The streak performance meant the most due to it being a grudge match and due to him redeeming his performance on the SM the year prior. 2024 looks to be a year where he continues to be the best battler in the game, if he handles all his plays correctly. His battle against Chef Trez indicates he's on a true warpath. If you haven't guessed already, Easy the Block Captain is the best to come out of UM1. Again, I don't want to spend too much time talking about before the tournament. There's way too much to cover, and last year alone can be its own documentary. But one thing I will say is that this tournament changed Easy's life. While he was gaining traction in the PGs, this tournament revamped his career to the fullest. While it is a major story that Easy pulled an upset in the first round against Don Marino, the story between him and Soundz is much more important. And honestly, the loss to Soundz is what his career needed. This loss not only pushed Easy to go harder, but it developed a rabid fan base and a following no one could have imagined. The fans fell in love with his real talk style and his ability to break down his opponent. To many, Easy's style reminded them of the smack era of battle rap. I think it gave him the energy to call out Cortez and start the streak. The Denny Myers battle started to flame, and Easy's top tier diss would make it spread like wildfire. This buzz would not only intensify in 2021, but his status would grow as well. The year started with him handling unfinished business with T-Top. In my opinion, it was his most impressive performance up to that date. He was extremely poised and looked very seasoned for someone who wasn't even considered a top 5 prospect out of UM1 a year prior. He then carries that energy into a highly anticipated T-Rex battle that resulted in him winning on his first normal appearance. But we all know the battle that stuck out the most in his 2021 campaign. His instant classic versus Chess. If he wasn't top tier before he touched the stage, he was for sure one when he got off. And he closed out the year with an impressive win over K-Shine on Smack Volume 9. In 2022, Easy shifted into the conversation of being the best battler in the world, with wins against A-Verb, Goods Unknown, Calico and SM, and Big T in his backyard. But Easy would take it a step further by facing Hitman Holla on Chrome's anniversary card at the top of 2023, and he delivered once again. But one thing I want to add to this is that Easy was the most talked about battler in 2023, and there's no close runner-up. This year was more about the drama than actual work, the URL split, the Gun Titles departure, the Trenches fallout, the Papoose situation, Battle Academy, the recordings, etc., etc., etc. When I look at the year strictly through the battle rap lens, I see 5 battles against high-caliber names. Moreover, I see a win over Hitman in a heavyweight matchup, a win over Reed Dollaz in a good battle for Philly, a win over Disaster on his own league, and a loss to Geechee, and a really good battle with John the Don. From a battle rap lens, this is a pretty good year. However, I do think he sits in an interesting spot in 2024 because a lot of the people consider his streak to be over, so the pressure is kind of off in that regard. But the pressure is still on because of the drama and because of who he is. I will say the best in the world talks is always subject to change, especially if you're battling top names night in and night out. I don't think that Easy will drop out the conversation of being the best, but it won't be as undisputed as it was before, especially if he takes more losses than he has in the past couple of years.